Welcome everyone to Manufacturing Matters Podcast. We're recording here live at Automate 2024. I'm here with my co-host, Winn Hardin, whom you all know, and joining us today are Dave Bader of Eurotech, on my far left, Travis Cox of Inductive Automation, and we're here to talk about cybersecurity today. Know that you two are working together on some projects. Before we go there, I wanted to kind of introduce us to the audience a little bit with what each of you are doing individually. Dave, you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Again, my name's David Bader. I lead business development for Eurotech in North America. I've been in the industrial automation space for, I like to say 100 years because I don't really like to mention that it's been over 40. So I appreciate everyone listening. So Eurotech is a European-based company that builds devices and software to manage edge at the in the industrial space. Been around over 30 years and very excited to participate with this activity today.
Yeah, and I'm Travis Cox. I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist for Inductive Automation. And Inductive Automation, we're a software company. We provide Ignition. It's our software platform. It's a platform to develop any kind of industrial application from HMI, SCADA to MES and more. It's really all about being able to empower people to turn great ideas into reality, and if they can dream up the application, hopefully they can build that with Ignition.
Outstanding. So how did you guys come together and to what purpose?
Yeah, so we came together, Ignition as a software platform, it runs on-premise in the OT arena, and it runs at the edge or on a centralized server, but it has to run on a piece of equipment, right? And customers are always asking us what computers can we run it on? What's the best practices out there? And that's how we got hooked up with Eurotech in terms of being able to have, from a cybersecurity stance, all the way through from the hardware to the software.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting actually. Travis and I met, and our first discussion was about cybersecurity. I mean, it was literally, that was our first discussion, and it was about how Inductive Automation has kind of built their own infrastructure internally to meet industry standards for cybersecurity. But the OT space is really particular as far as the standards are concerned. So to get the highest level of cybersecurity, it includes hardware and software. Right. So the ability for us to partner together, and we have many of our hardware products that we've already released into the market are built to that IEC 62443-4-2 standard, which combined with Inductive Automation's 4-1 standard gives our end user customers the opportunity to really elevate their cybersecurity posture in the field.
Yeah, we're seeing, of course, with these Industry 4.0 digital transformation efforts where we're blending the worlds of OT and IT, right? Mm-hmm. We're having to move data from these HMI SCADA systems now through the business up and even into the cloud. And when we're doing that, we have to be conscious about that data flow. We have to be conscious about these systems, right? We have to, these systems are still used to control equipment and machines, and we want to make sure we're not opening ourselves up to any vulnerabilities. So, in the old days, it might be okay to run on a specific, an OS that might be, at end of life. Right. But these days, it's absolutely not, right? We have to really look at cybersecurity all the way through that entire stack now.
Yeah. In fact, 20% of the cyber attacks right now are attributable to factory, OT kind of devices. So it's never been more important now than it is now for us to be able to be aware of this. So building that infrastructure from the beginning is super important.
Do most of those attacks kind of originate at the IT level, or is it?
Well, 20% right now. 20% of the attacks at the OT level are kind of really, really pretty significant. And there's a number of reasons why, right? We're connecting more things, as Travis said, right? We're connecting from
the IoT world.
Yeah, the whole IoT space all the way up to the IT level, up to the cloud. Yeah. So we have legacy systems in the field, legacy operating systems, legacy PLCs, things that are really inherently have vulnerabilities.
Yeah, with these systems on premise, I mean, a lot of the attack vectors aren't necessarily bad actors coming from the outside world, coming in. It's people that work there that are going in, plugging in USB devices or accessing the systems with their laptops, and so that with that world being so complicated, right? We really have to look at our architecture more closely.
And most of those are unintentional, I'm assuming. Most of them were.
Well, I think for a while they were unintentional, but now there's an incentive you know, for people out there to create these problems, right? There's businesses out there that are built around, you know, trying to, you know, the bad actors, right? Trying to build a business around
Hurting the
holding
competition
people up.
intentionally.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, or charging money to get people back up and running.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is not, and you know, they don't know that these things are happening.
Right.
But they picked up this device, or somebody said, hey, can you go look at this thing? And they plug it in, and all of a sudden we have, you know, ransomware or some other issues that are happening out there.
Yeah, I mean, last year, Brunswick Corporation is $1 billion company, right? Last year, I think June, so less than a year ago, they were down. Their entire manufacturing, you know, operations were down for almost 10 days. Cost the company over $85 million, and that was through the OT space. The OT space.
So if someone was to get started in this and start leveraging your capabilities, what are the first steps? How do they approach this challenge?
Yeah, you know, I'll start with this because we were just discussing that, you know, we can go and put Eurotech's hardware in there. We can go put the ignition software on that, get it installed and running. By default, those are not going to make you secure.
Okay.
Right? All of the tools and the configuration is there to make it secure, but it really means that somebody has to apply that. Right, and they have to understand how that works with the rest of their infrastructure.
Now, is that a discipline of operations, or is that a final integration step that's having to be done internally by the business?
You know, I think it's the first step, right? I think you need to understand where your vulnerabilities are.
Okay.
So bringing in a third party to understand, you know, what is the actual, you know, capability that you want to try to mitigate, and then from there you can start to build a solution. Now, you know, as Travis said, we have a really prescribed solution that's built to the highest standards together, right?
Literally.
And you know, the 62443 standard is mandated in Europe, and it is, you know, highly suggested everywhere else in the world for almost every vertical market. I know Inductive Automation spends a lot of time in manufacturing and other vertical markets as well, as do we. And these standards are being carried across all these vertical markets. But the ultimate piece is, just because we put them in there doesn't mean that you've inherently made it any more secure. So I think that that's a message that we really want to, you know, double stop on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And from our standpoint, you know, we have professionals on the OT side who absolutely have to keep the operations running.
Yep.
Right? That is their job. That's their domain. They know that domain. We can't rely on them to understand the complexity of the world of cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, IT, that is their main job.
Yeah.
It's one of their main jobs. And so really where the success comes is by companies building a culture where they're bringing the two sides together, and they're building teams where they're attacking this from both sides, where they're understanding that you've got to put these tools in that are going to help operations, but at the same time are using the same modern technologies and best practices that the IT is already applying. Because then they can take all that and bring it in. The great example of where these things fall flat is, like, talk a lot about shadow IT. Right, so if you look at the Oldsmar treatment plant in Florida, what had happened? They installed TeamViewer on a client workstation, HMI client workstation out there. And that wasn't IT that did that, it was the operations team.
Right.
So they can go access it remotely.
Yeah,
that's
remote
great.
Support, be able to dial in technical support, or maybe view their own systems remotely, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, but it wasn't applied necessarily with how we would do modern security practices where it's two-factor authentication. It was just simple username and password. So somebody, as a bad actor, got in and was changing set points on the HMI that was already logged in to do so.
Wow.
Right? So had the teams work together and say, hey, look, we need to have remote access.
Yeah.
What's the best way that we can approach this? You know, have the two professions come together. You know, then we're going down the path together. You know, it's all about risk mitigation. We can't prevent everything. We got to be able to apply what we can to make this work.
So is there a third pillar here? When we talk about software, we talk about hardware. Is there also a process cultural component?
100%. I think, yeah, and that's where I'm going with the you know, understanding what the problems are ahead of time. Right? But it's also education, and I think that's where you were touching on with the people. I mean, I know, you know, walking into a factory and seeing an HMI or something like that with a post-it note with the password and username on there, you know, admin, right? It's just the way it was for a long time. So if we don't educate the teams, you know, that are in the field, that are in the OT space, that this is not acceptable anymore, then it's going to continue to happen. So yeah, I think that culture is big.
Yeah, and
Is there particular verticals out there that are really sort of exhibiting a adopting this, embracing this?
Particularly
framework
a specific threat or?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's in a different, different stage of their adoption. I don't know that I can speak to any particular vertical, but if you look at like vertical, but if you look at like medical, right? I mean, medical, it's an amazing thing that they've gotten away with it as long as they have, but you can't connect, in a medical device company can't necessarily push data outside of a hospital or anything. It's just not, it's something that they've tried to lock down for many years. That's changing. So they have to really kind of catch up. Their standards, they have a technical directive called 60601 that is actually now adopting 602 or 62443. So each of the verticals have different perspectives. I think in my presentation that I did this week, I had a slide that had about 10 different verticals and the different relative standards that are related and how they all point back to 62443. That's kind of that overriding standard.
And what about particular technologies? I know you're talking about edge AI in your booth. Is there particular technologies that are increasing the vulnerability to attack like this? I know IoT is a big umbrella term, but
I don't know. I don't think, it's a great question that I haven't really thought about it. I don't think it's a particular technology as much as it is the need for a particular technology to connect. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, we talked about from edge to cloud or from in fact, actually we start, what 62443 helps us to do in our solution is from the TPM area, right, from the chip design,
right.
We manage the certificates in a zero-touch provisioned way, right? So from the chip all the way to the cloud, we can manage all of those certificates so that you don't have to email a password or email somebody that certificate, and then when it needs to be updated because there's additional bad actors that have been identified, you can update those certificates, right? So I think it's the connectivity. I think there's like a couple of things, right? It's the legacy systems that we have in the OT space, right, that are inherently vulnerable. I think the education of the people that we're working with needs to be increased, and then I think that this zero touch, never trust, always verify approach, which is again going back to the IT side.
Yeah, I mean these are nowadays the more and more people are learning about zero trust and
exactly.
The models that are there, they start to understand why it's so important, right? Because it's like, first of all, you just have to trust nobody.
Right. Exactly.
Right? So when I put something in, we gotta trust nobody.
Yeah.
We have to be able to,
Welcome to modern times. It used to be distrust until they gave you a reason not to, but not anymore.
Yeah. And so, like I was saying before, I put ignition in by default. It's open, right?
Yeah.
We have to go in there and we have to go and turn on SSL. Make sure that the gateway is protected, right, through a certificate, and the IT should manage that certificate. It should be something that they're handling, not some self-signed one, that you then still don't get that trusted in your browser, right?
It doesn't get updated and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about certificate management all the way through is really important. But then being able to tie into their corporate identity systems.
Yep.
Yeah, and IT has them. It used to be Active Directory, and nowadays we're talking about things like Okta and Duo and Microsoft ADFS and all these tools that provide secure authorization, and they provide multi-factor. Right? That second form is incredibly important. And I know for a lot of OT people, why they have Post-its on there is because they complain about how hard it is. I got to log in and get the system. Well, then they don't understand they're not understanding the landscape of cybersecurity. We're not educating them properly to say, hey, the reason you're doing this is because we need to have a better posture here, right? And that second form can be something easy. It could be a badge. It could be acceptance on their phone. There's all sorts of great technologies that are there. Biometrics, all of those.
And let's face it, we're all doing it in our everyday daily life anyhow. Right?
Right.
There's no website or no modern technology that you're accessing from your phone that doesn't have a second form of authentication.
But what we're really trying to do here is say that, look, 62443, that standard has the best practices, right? These are standards bodies that come together and say, look, we must have these things. And that will evolve, it will change. There will be additions to them as we go forward. Of course. But as long as vendors are aligning to that, and the company is educated on what to do, and they have their teams working together, ultimately, then they're going to apply all those best practices. They're going to learn about those best practices, and they have products that they know will have the things in them that they need. And that's really what's so exciting, I think, about the collaboration we have, is that together we can mark it as you have the tool set you need, both from a hardware and a software standpoint, to do your due diligence, right? And we're also going to provide to you best practices. They have great documentation around this. We've got a security hardening guide that talks about how to do that. We have our security trust portal where they can go in and see any CVEs or vulnerabilities and or just what's out there, what's going on, so that they are armed with the best information possible, right, to take action.
So now, are your solutions usually deployed at the gateway, every open portal basically, or is this something in each control system, each machine?
Yeah, so I'll take that one because it differs for different verticals, different companies, how they want to approach it.
Right.
But if you look at traditional HMI systems, they're at the edge. They're all the way next to, they're critical assets, critical machines, they're right next to those PLCs.
Yep.
Well, those PLCs, as you mentioned earlier, they're not secure. They're open.
No, and
right?
most
These
of them cloud
protocols.
enablement is where, I mean, it's kind of is the current trend, right?
Yeah.
So every one of them has got a doorway right outside unless somehow you're directing all that traffic through a central portal or gateway.
Yeah, and we can have a layer 3 switch where we do VLANs and all that, but I think even a better posture is to have an edge device that goes out there with segregated Ethernet ports, right, where they can't cross over.
That's right.
You talk to the control system locally,
Right.
and you have the edge software that provides the HMI and provides the way to get data to a higher level system.
Gotcha.
So you
And
get the best
provides
of
a
both
way,
worlds.
sorry to interrupt, and it provides the way to be able to provide remote, device connectivity as well in a secure way, rather than just opening up a VPN, right? So everybody now just says, hey, yeah, I have a VPN, let's open it up. The standards now, kind of prescribe an outgoing VPN that doesn't allow incoming data. So, connecting to the cloud, being able to provide patches and things like that remotely, that's another feature that, is very important in this whole infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah. And like I said, whether you're at the edge or whether you have one centralized server, the same principles apply.
Of course.
Have the PLC network be separate, connect to that over its own network, and then have the application sit there that has all the best practices applied. So there's different arenas, but the principles are the same.
I would assume that like the plant network is probably, the existing plant network in that facility is probably driving that, where you're going to make recommendations.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I think it's for us, it's portable, right? So we can put gateways with this capability, with 60 foot, but we can also put edge servers,
Yeah.
and we can do anything in between, right? We can do edge AI servers that also have the security built in that are doing very high level inference, at the edge, and all of those can be equipped with that kind of capability.
Yeah, with that being said, the connectivity though is one of the big drivers.
It is.
For putting edge out there. So it's we talked for a long time about hub and spoke architectures, right? Because those at the spoke or at the edge, if you ever lost communication at a remote site, let's say a critical asset, maybe it's in a building where a forklift could cut the fiber to that building.
Sure, right.
You need to have that functionality locally. You cannot run blind, right?
Sure.
And so Edge has actually been around for a while from that standpoint. That's what HMI is really all about, right? We're just talking about connecting the Edge now to a high-level system, at the end of the day.
Right.
And so it becomes really important, like architecture, connectivity, and how they want to do this. But now we're in this weird state of digital transformation. We're talking about a lot more data.
Yes.
Now we're unleashing the 90% of data we stranded, and we want to get it out.
Right.
We're also doing it from a scalability standpoint,
Yeah.
distributing these systems.
And how do you do those patches? How do you maintain that system across that whole enterprise or that whole multiple enterprise kind of operation?
Because before you might have had one gateway,
Yeah.
not so bad to keep that patch, but
Yeah.
now if you have 100 edge gateways out there,
Yeah.
you've got to think about it a little more, and you should be applying technology that's going to help you do that, right? Progress forward in a much faster way.
Who does the charge of this in the enterprise? Is it IT that pretty much does it with OT's buy-in, or is OT
question.
drive this?
That's a
Or
great question.
how do you guys
I know we've been
guess-
talking about collaboration at a usual
Yeah,
level.
no,
Just
it's a really good question, because traditionally, from a SCADA perspective, the OT drives that, right? And they're
Yeah.
responsible for
Right.
that. However, all these digital
Cybersecurity.
transformation initiatives are not driven by OT, they're all
That's
IT based.
Right.
They're the ones that have the budgets, they're the ones that are trying to be, the data scientists are trying to turn data into insight. And what we're doing is saying, look, we'll connect down, we'll get that information to a system that's fundamentally insecure.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, we should build a better foundation. We should have a SCADA system or HMIs, right, that are in their own right secure and modern, but have the ability to speak OT or IT languages so that we can get that data up. And now it's a matter of collaboration between the teams, rather than it's like you're going to connect down to me and get my data. No, We're going to provide it to you so that you can do those initiatives.
But I think it's part of this evangelism that we're doing, right? Is this partnership and everything is to make it easier for these two teams to talk together, because inherently they have always butted heads, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the IT guys and the OT guys, you're stepping on my feet, right? And I think if, to your point about providing IT kind of capabilities at the OT level, makes it easier for the IT guys to come down, and it helps the OT guys understand exactly why the IT guys make the decisions that they do.
Yeah.
You know,
Is there a common dashboard for both that they're able to access, or is it, how's the interface for OT guys versus the IT guys? Because the IT guys need to see the whole enterprise, whereas the OT guys have to see their plant, their operation.
Yeah, I mean, IT is more focused on, you know, the health of the systems and, you know, what the network looks like,
Sure.
and, you know, connectivity and uptime of servers and, you
Well,
know.
in terms of dashboard, they're going to be accessing your software, UI, UX, in terms of running on your hardware
Right.
systems,
Yeah.
right? So in terms of engagement with the security system, it's going to be at induction automations.
Yeah, and you want that to fit into how all the other applications that they're doing,
Right.
how they all work, and you know, at the same time.
So what are the biggest challenges you guys see right now? I mean, I can envision where, you know, adding a software module to an existing HMI PLC, people might be willing to do that. They can see the additional cost, but you really can't have the security without the hardware platform.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's just say this: you can't easily create an overall secure solution quickly without having built from the ground up, you know, to the standards. Right. Again, we're going to reemphasize the fact that inherently we're not secure. Right. We're not, when we work with inductive automation, that system isn't secure. But we're giving you the tools that are able to make the entire system secure much quicker than you would otherwise.
Gotcha.
You know, and we're building that to, you know, to the industry, in many cases mandated requirements. So, you know, I mentioned briefly that in Europe, this is a mandate, right? This is a finable offense if you don't build to these standards, right?
No.
You know,
Yeah.
now.
Right.
And what we're doing in the U.S. is we're saying, you know, okay, you know, we've made recommendations, but I look at almost everything as an ROI or a total cost of ownership, right?
Mhm, sure.
So when you think about the Brunswick case that I just mentioned, or the Applied Materials case that happened also last year, that cost them $250 million and 10 days of lost productivity, that they reported in their you know, quarterly report,
Yeah.
that it affected their overall business. So if you start looking at it as a total cost of ownership, you don't need a law to tell you that this is important.
250 million is one thing. A 5% drop in your stock price could be a whole different
Yeah,
animal.
that's exactly right. That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know, the big challenge is, of course, education, right? And mandates help because it helps, you know, gear people to what do I need to know to be able to achieve that. And you know, here the other thing that's a challenge besides education is just the fact that a lot of systems here are legacy.
Yeah.
Are older,
Exactly.
and they're getting to end of life of these systems. They're running on antiquated OSs or hardware, and you know they've got to do something. They can't let that be. Also, there's probably not even a product off the shelf that they can find if it goes down. Right?
Yeah.
They're going to have to
Could be
upgrade. They're
swapped
going to
out
have to
hardware
learn
anyway.
something new.
That's right.
Right.
So what we hope, of course, is that when they're looking at something new, that we take a more modern mindset and think about these you know, cybersecurity along with, of course, just the operations things that are needed. Right? Put it all together.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Well, at least we talk about education here, it's such a key component. We're probably, what are we, about 10 years into this discussion? You know, when we start to see OT threats early on, you know, the famous ones in overseas and everything.
Yeah.
Some you know, government actors doing these. So I think that's about how long the conversation's been going on, right?
I think publicly that's probably as long as it's been going on, but
Okay.
but again, it goes back to that additional vulnerability because of and now things becoming more and more connected.
Right.
So you know, we can look at these at you know, best practices in the past where we're not going to connect to anything, right? Our plant's going to be, you know, completely an island. That's not feasible. You can't manage, you know, any operation that way today. So yeah, I think 10 years makes sense, but I think it's accelerating, right? It's
Well, that's
really,
right.
really happening.
There's a drumbeat. I mean, every week you're hearing about ransomware, malware
Yeah.
attacks
Yeah.
in the industrial level, you know, as
Yeah.
opposed to.
Literally today, in our booth here at the show, a company came in and we were having a general discussion. I started talking about cybersecurity, and I said, hey, you know, you got to be, you're a small company, but you got to be aware. And he said, yeah, we got hacked this week. this week. They got
At
it
the OT level or?
at the OT level.
How big was that company, roughly?
I have no idea.
Okay.
You know, it was the first time I met them, and they were scared.
But the point is
They were
you don't
very
have to be a $100 million company.
That's
just
right.
to be relevant.
That's right.
No, absolutely.
That's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
You can be relatively small, maybe 5 to 20 million. It probably has a lot to do with who you're doing business with in terms of your visibility. You know, whether you're becoming a target
Yeah.
for bad
But
actors.
we talked a little bit about, you know, there's inadvertent attacks too, right? There's
Yeah.
things that just happen. So in 62443, there's multiple layers, right? So a service layer 1 is designed to, you know, prevent those inadvertent attacks and also tamper evident
Yeah.
at the field, right? So again, you know, if a guy turned a screwdriver or whatever, you get a bit, you're able to at least enunciate that there's a problem. And you can decide what you want to do with the system there. But SL2 is designed very specifically around, targeted attacks, known targeted attacks.
Gotcha.
Now, there's 3 and 4 as well. But, you know, there's nobody at the OT level that are 3 and 4. Eurotech has actually taken a stance where we're, at this point, several of our products are SL2, kind of designed to SL2 standards, which, again, is a way to maintain, the known attack, kind of vector that people are starting to see.
Right.
But we're certified to that standard. You can build to a standard, but there's also the added and extra requirements to get certified to that standard by a third party, independent certification.
The mandate in Europe, is there a timeline on that? It's not just greenfield, there's no grandfather.
Oh, no, it's underway now, and by 2027,
Okay.
it is, I think it's going to encompass everything. So
2027.
off the top of my head, I don't remember, but I do have some references to talk about it, but it's in play right now.
So I'm going to guess you guys have some European offices?
We're a European company.
Yeah, we have several European distributors that have to.
Yeah, we work together in
deal with
Europe
this, yeah.
quite a bit, yeah.
Outstanding.
One thing I want to say is that, like, it's easy to turn a blind eye, right, into this stuff, and thinking that.
Well, plus it's an area that these folks just don't understand
They
in
don't get it.
manufacturing. It's just not
Right, well, it
something
hasn't
that-
happened to me. It's not going to be a concern of mine. But see, that's the fundamental problem, right? Is that the DNA and the culture of these companies have to change in saying, look, cybersecurity is something we have to take seriously all the way across the board. Now, of course, IT's doing that, right? And knowing, like, you're talking about, the technical details of these things are important for them to monitor, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just those, it's everybody that's got to be a part. Leaders have to basically set a standard that, look, we're all going to follow, we're going to be trained and we're going to follow these techniques. And this is also just people, I mean, our company, we have every employee go through a training series of videos. It's actually quite fun to watch these videos, but it's really good acting and stuff, but is to kind of talk about these ransomwares and these attacks and the social engineering that's out there and all these things that are happening, right? So that we can be better prepared. So that we look at the email two times, right? Rather than just clicking on something. Maybe we're thinking about, what is it coming from?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And if everybody in the organization is doing that, then not only do you have the right protections in place with your systems, but you also have people that are thinking about it, and that combination is really important.
It's pretty interesting to, when you visit a customer or you visit a show like this and you see people working on their laptops, maybe at lunch or something, and then they walk away from their open laptop. It's the culture, that simple culture of, hey, you can't leave your laptop open anymore because that is a path of vulnerability.
Right.
And people just have to be educated.
Yeah, but I mean, in lack of that too, if companies are moving towards that, it's great. But at least there's assurance that with what we're marketing and kind of putting out there, there's assurance that, hey, we do have products that will allow us to get there. And we can have a pretty good, much better secure system than we've had before.
100%,
Let's be
right?
real. We're probably hearing the tiniest fraction of a percent in terms of the attacks that are actually happening.
Maybe.
Because people are not wanting to. I mean, they're not promoting it. No one's talking about the fact when they get hacked.
Yeah. And let's face it, critical infrastructure, government, military, nuclear, all the power plants, all these things are obviously big attack vectors.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And and what's cool now is government's actually putting funding, for these organizations to enhance their cybersecurity standards. So they just don't know that it's there.
Yeah.
If they do that and they can get access to these kind of products,
Technology.
then things can change.
But it's got to be
quite a bit.
end-to-end, right? As
It's
you're
got
saying.
to be end-to-end, yeah, for sure. You can't just put a product in and think it's going to solve any problems.
That's right.
unfortunately.
We're just trying to allow it to be an easier lift to build that posture.
Yeah.
Dave, Travis, is there any other key value props points that we haven't covered? Something that you want to, last thought, you want to leave the audience with?
Well, like I said, I think, it's important to really, it's time to enhance our cybersecurity posture, right?
Yeah.
To really be educated about these. We do a lot, at least our company will do a session, with companies to kind of talk about it. What do you have? What are you worried about? These kind of things, and we can offer any guidance and help there. And I think that's what a lot of what you do is we're there to educate, right? At the end of the day, we have products we want to sell, but we're also there just
So
to
what
educate.
website should people go to when they want to learn more?
Eurotech.com.
Okay, inductiveautomation.com.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is that this partnership is opening up the discussion a little bit more as well.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So having the ability, to talk to customers about these kinds of applications and these things. I mean, Eurotech's been doing this for quite some time now. We're the first, person to be, from a hardware perspective, to be, certified at this level.
Zero touch.
Yeah, and having this partnership with Inductive Automation is something that is really opening up the discussion. So I'm super
And we
excited.
see it here, right?
Yeah,
Automate,
100%.
we've had customers come because they heard about that and they want to know more.
Exactly.
And that's a great thing to see.
This means you should come to revisit Automate 2025, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
let's not wait that long. I mean, this is more of a FabTech Modex all the way across the board. I hope you guys will be taking the message out there to there's an awful lot of industries that are gobbling up automation technology who every one of them is vulnerable.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
David, Travis, we can't thank you enough for giving us some time today. This is a critical topic. I'm glad that we're having a deep dive on this. This will not be our last time that Manufacturing Matters will look at this topic. So if you've got any questions for Dave or Travis, please shoot them over to us. You can click below, like the episode we have right now. If you want to see any past episodes, go to manufacturing-matters.com. If you'd like to be on the show, reach out to us, ping us. And again, if you've got any questions, be sure to go by these gentlemen's websites, find out. I'm sure they've got a whole lot of educational material on their websites that'll help you understand the threat and how hardware and software are working together to make the world a safer place. So until our next episode, thank you so much for Manufacturing Matters, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.